Hey, what's up guys, it's Kyle, and in this video, I'm gonna talk all about pricing as a creative, a photographer, videographer, things like that. So for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Kyle Benjamin Turner. I've been doing photography and videography for about 8 years now for some of the biggest brands in the world, L'Oreal, Ralph Lauren, Prada, Nespresso, etc., etc. So I know quite a bit about, pricing, how much we're supposed to charge, how to make money consistently, high amounts of money consistently. So on average, our company does about $30,000 a month in revenue. We've done up to $50,000 a month in revenue with just photography and videography. A little bit of like content creation on retainer for some brands as well. But that's my background. So this is kind of what I'm gonna be sharing with you today. So in this video, I'm gonna go over a couple different topics. I'm gonna talk about, if you're just starting out with pricing, what you're supposed to do. If you've already, charged some good prices for your work already, but you're not doing it consistently, some things that you can do in that situation as well. Maybe I'll touch a little bit on the sales side of things as well. So let's get started in the beginning. And by the way, this is going to be there's going to be tons of topics that we touch on in this video. I'm just going to riff for as long as possible so that you guys get like a full understanding. I'll make it like a masterclass. So the first thing you need to understand if you're going to be charging high prices for the first time is it really is about your mindset. Okay. So if you've never charged, let's say $3,000 for a photo shoot, $10,000 for a photo shoot, you're not in the right mindset to really understand what it takes to do that, to get to that point, right? So you're going to have to start switching up your mindset to understand what are you going to have to do to charge those prices. So I'm going to think back to when I was, first charging $3,000. Basically what I did was I had to convince myself of the value that I was bringing to the table, right? So a lot of the times it's not going to be exactly what you think, it's not going to be like, I have to do this one thing and this one thing and this one thing, and it's going to equal up to $3,000 in value. You really have to understand what you're doing as a creative and what you're doing as a service. Instead of thinking about it as, I'm a creative and I'm doing creative stuff, start thinking about it as I'm a business and I'm doing business stuff. Once you can get to that level, it becomes much easier. So I'll break it down as an example. I remember when I first started charging anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000, one of the things that I first started doing was I started looking at what was I doing on my own time, right? So what I was doing at the time, this is when I first started, I was doing a lot of portrait photography. So what I started doing was I started looking at, okay, if I'm doing a photo shoot and, I'm doing a one outfit photo shoot, there's not much going on. That's probably gonna be my lower end package. If I'm doing a 3 outfit photo shoot, it's gonna take, 2 hours minimum. I'm gonna need to bring like a changing room tent, etc. This was stuff that I was doing with models already and like on my own time already. So I had this process down to a T, and that's one of the things you're gonna have to get to is like, get your process down to a T. You're not gonna charge $1,000, $3,000 plus if you have no idea what you're doing, right? Like you need to have a solid service and you need to start thinking like a business. And I don't want you to think like vaguely like, oh, what does that mean? Think like a business. Like it's simple. A business needs to make money. There needs to be processes in place. Think like you're a boss, like you're a boss of your own company and you're one of your own employees, and you have to treat yourself like you're one of your own employees. If you could get to that point, it's going to be much, much easier to charge higher prices. And something that will happen over time is as you start charging these prices, and I'll talk about like what you're supposed to say, how you're supposed to figure out how you're going to even get to that price, etc. But one of the things that you have to do is you have to like gain the reference experiences of charging this amount of money to really become confident in doing it. So if you only charge $3,000 one time, you might think, oh, maybe this is a fluke, right? But if you've charged $3,000 like hundreds of times, like I have at my company, then at that point, you're very confident in charging that much, right? So you're not really thinking about it. Like $3,000 for me isn't even a high price for a photography or videography service. That's me now. Doing this for like 10 plus years, and we have multiple projects that are over $10,000, right? So you really have to, get to the point where you're able to, have the reference experiences so that you're able to say, I'm worth this much. And you always like kind of backtrack, right? So if I was worth $3,000, what would I do? You have to figure out what it is that you would do if you were worth $3,000. So an easy way to go about that would be, okay, what would I be doing? So for example, I was doing portraits at the time. So if I'm doing a 3 outfit photo shoot, if I'm creating the content plan, if I'm bringing the outfits for the client, etc., and I'm bringing the makeup artist, I'm bringing a stylist who's going to get the clothes ready for the person. Okay, that's going to cost $3,000, right? So you have to get really good at that process first. So nail it down, start doing all the things that you need to do to get that process down first. And then once you get that process down, it's going to become much easier to start charging those prices. Now I want to touch on the point of how do you start figuring out what you're actually going to price your photography at, right? There's multiple ways to go about this. When it comes like what the beginning stages that I would typically tell a photographer to do is just charge something that, seems exciting to you. And there's going to be levels to this. Okay. So I'm going to throw out a bunch of ideas just so you have like a full grasp, because there's different stages that you're going to be at. So just based on your stage is what you're going to do, right? The first stage is you need to charge something, right? So I remember the first photo shoot I did was like $50. I wouldn't recommend that now in this economy, but like, if you're really starting out, like brand new, just out of high school, just out of college, yeah, like $50, like just do it for $50. Somebody pays you $50. You just went out of your way to like go do the shoot, whatever. That's not a big deal. If you've been doing it for a while, you shouldn't be charging $50. You shouldn't even be charging $100. Start going to those $1,000, $3,000 price points, right? But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to figure out a price that you feel makes sense to you at the time. And if you haven't done those like previous projects that, like I said, get you confident in your service and what you're doing with friends, with models, etc., then that's like what you're going to want to do so that you can figure out, okay, what is it really worth in terms of my time? How many hours am I spending? If I had an hourly rate, how much would I be spending? How much should this be person paying me for that hourly rate? Those are a couple of the different things that you're going to want to think about. And then what you're going to want to do, this is another strategy that I use, is you're going to want to start going from like a small amount of money, let's say $50 to $300. You're going to want to do that, but you're going to want to get fully booked at that price point. Okay. Don't skip ahead and be like, oh, I'm going to charge $3,000 just because I want to charge $3,000. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like if you really want to do this full time as a photographer, start at a small price point and get fully booked at that price point. There is no reason why you should be charging $3,000 if you're declining people at $3,000 just because you don't want to do it. Like it actually blows my mind, because this happens to us when we reach out to people. We'll be like, hey, an influencer, for example, will be like, hey, we want you guys to make a post for us. And then they'll be like, okay, $3,000. And we'll be like, can you do it for like $2,000? They'll be like, no. And it's like, are you fully booked at a $2,000 price point or whatever it is, or $3,000 price point? If not, then it just accept the job, right? Now, obviously you have to determine, like I said, how much hours do you have available? You don't want to like, if you only have a certain amount of hours available in the week, there's going to be like an hourly rate you need to determine for what it's even worth for you to do. But again, these are different stages. So like when you're charging $50 to like $300, you're just starting out and you just want a little bit of money just so that it's even worth your time to like leave your house. But when it gets to the point where it's like, let's say for example, you're working another job or you just started doing it full time and you only have a certain amount of hours in your week that you can even allocate to this project, that's when you're going to want to go, okay, how much do I need to charge so that it's even worth it for me to do this? But these are two completely different areas. I don't want you to get confused and be like, oh, how much should I be charging just to go outside when you're not booked? You know what I mean? Like if you have a full-time job and you're doing this on weekends, then you only have a certain amount of hours. If you're freelance and you're pretty booked and you can only take on a certain amount of projects if you're making a certain amount of money, that's when you're going to think about that stuff. But if you're, in the $50 to $300 price point, that's probably not something that you're going to be thinking about. So now how do we go from this like $50 to $300 price point? How do we go from that to like, let's say $1,000 to $3,000? So again, it really comes down to mindset and confidence. Once you've done this a couple of times, it's really going to start making sense, but you need to start seeing the value in it, and you're going to have to start seeing why and who are the kind of people that are going to be looking for this service, right? I'm vaguely touching on photography, videography, all these creative fields, right? But I'll try and give you guys like a couple different examples. Like if somebody's going to do a photo shoot for $1,000 to $3,000, generally they're going to be a more affluent person. They don't necessarily always need to be super affluent, but assuming they're probably going to be somewhat affluent, they are getting it for a specific reason. So they either want a general portrait of who they are as a person, that they're going to put like on their wall, or their family member, their daughter, their family in general, etc. Or maybe they run a business, they want branded portraits. I would pay, $1,000 or $2,000 for branded portraits because, it's worth it to do that. If you're a business owner, it's worth it to have, like, if you just think about that portrait you're going to use when you're speaking at conferences, when you're doing brand deal, whatever it is, like on your Instagram profile, like that is worth $1,000 because if you're, let's say, for example, running a 6-figure business, I mean, that is your logo, right? Your face is your logo if you're a personal brand. So you have to start thinking about who are the kind of people who are going to be doing these things, right? Like, is it going to be like a personal brand? Is it going to be a business? Is it going to be a person? Generally, the people who are going to be paying $1,000 to $3,000 are going to be a specific kind of market, and you're going to have to target that market. So if you guys are doing like landscape photography, I don't really know who's going to be paying you $1,000 to $3,000 to do landscape photography. It's very rare. But portraits, there are people who would pay that. But the majority of people are going to want to pay anywhere between, like, let's say $300 to $500 on average. The people who are going to pay $1,000 to $3,000, personal branding. They're going to want headshots for their business. They're going to want portraits of either their family, their daughter, something special. So that is going to be what you're going to want to put in your portfolio so that you can start charging that price. A lot of people are always asking me, how do I charge that price? How do I charge that price? You're going to target the kind of person who wants that thing, right? So let's say, for example, Apple sells phones. They're going to make a phone for the kind of person who wants a phone. They're not going to make a phone for someone who doesn't want to use a phone, right? Like a lot of people know, like let's say, for example, Samsung, they make those flip phones. iPhone doesn't have one because their target market doesn't really want one right now. That's probably the main reason why they haven't launched that yet. Maybe they will in the future, but they don't really think that their target market wants that right now, so they're not going to make it. You need to know who your target market is so that you're able to figure out what are you going to charge in this target market. And if you want to charge $1,000, $3,000, you can't be targeting the clients who want to pay, let's say $150 to $500, because those aren't going to be the people who are going to pay $1,000 to $3,000. So you're going to want to do a couple different things. You're going to want to think about who are the kind of people who are going to pay that $1,000 to $3,000 price point. And then you're also going to want to figure out, how do you get to that point? How do you build up a portfolio so that those people want to work with you? Because you're going to need to have a portfolio that gets those people attracted to you. So we've gone through a couple stages. How do you go from, like, let's say the $50 to $150 price point, $300 price point, whatever. How do you go to like $1,000 to $3,000? So a lot of you guys are probably wondering, well, how do I get to this place where people are even finding me to pay this amount? So there are multiple ways that you're going to want to go about it. I have some other videos on this. I actually have a course on this. Not that you guys need to buy it, but all my videos are already in there. Over time, I'm going to be uploading more videos like this to YouTube, so I will have some free videos out on it. But if you do want the videos I've already made on, I do have a course on it. But like I said, I will have more videos like this coming out on my YouTube channel. They're just not out right now. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do marketing. So marketing is very simple. You're going to want to put yourself in a position where people who don't know you are going to know you. So typically that's going to be through advertisements. You do Facebook advertisements, Instagram advertisements. You could get to the first page of Google. Those are the kind of different things that you're going to want to go about. And then once you do that, you're going to have your portfolio that you've already ideally made that will be attracting people who want to pay that $1,000 to $3,000 price point. Once you've done that, then you're going to have people coming to you who want to pay that amount, right? And then another thing to mention here is, there's going to be different times where you go to different price points. Like I remember there was times where I would charge $300 to $500 for a photo shoot, and then like a week later I'm charging $3,000 to $1,000, and then within the next quarter I'm back to charging $500. Like that just might happen depending on your time of year, and this is why I say, never decline something because it's not the price point you want. Like if you're not fully booked, just get booked at the lower price point, right? Because you want to be making consistent revenue all year long. Like if you look at there's a couple different places, but in Canada, we have a place called Bath & Body Works. I don't know if they have it in the States as well, but they have Bath & Body Works. And Bath & Body Works, for the most part, like they're making almost all of their revenue towards the end of the year. I don't know this for a fact, by the way, but I'm guessing. They make the majority of their revenue right at the end of the year near Christmas time, because everybody's going to Bath & Body Works and buying like tons and tons and tons of soap to give away as gifts, right? So you need to understand that there's going to be different seasons in your photography journey or your videography journey. And that's where you're going to have to figure out where and when am I going to charge these prices, and it's going to be based on how booked you are. So if you're getting really, really booked at $500 and you're noticing, okay, my week's booked at $500, my week's booked at $500, boom, increase it to $750, boom, increase it to $1,000. Now that you're booked at $750, now that you're booked at $1,000, increase it to $2,000, increase it to $3,000. Let's say you're at $3,000 and now you're not fully booked. You have some time on your hands. All right, bring it back down to $1,000, right? Get fully booked again. Okay, boom. Now bring it up to $3,000. Okay, I've done it for, let's say I was fully booked at $3,000 for 3 weeks and then I wasn't booked anymore. So you go back down, and then the next time you go back to up to $3,000, you're going to do it for like, oh, now I did it for 6 weeks. I was fully booked at $3,000, right? That's how you're going to go from making, $3,000 a month all the way to 10, 20, 30K a month, right? That's basically how you're going to do that. That's the process. You figure out, okay, how do I go from booked at like a small price point to a large price point and then consistently getting there. But there's another thing that you're going to need to understand, which is you're going to need to think from the mindset of a person who's making that much money, right? So like a lot of people come up to me like, how do you make so much money doing photography and videography? Like my clients don't have the budget. People don't ever reach out to me, Like something I've realized in life is the mindset you have the mindset you have about something, you need to have it beforehand. Okay, you can't just say like, oh yeah, now I'm getting fully booked. I have this mindset that, oh yeah, everybody wants to pay me. There's people coming to me all the time. Like, no, you have to believe that beforehand. People love coming to me. People love my brand. Like, people love working with me. People always say good things about me when I'm doing photography. These are the things that you're gonna have to think beforehand. And then when you get it and you validate it's true, oh, boom, now I'm even more confident, and it just reaffirms this belief that I have in my head. If you can't do that, I mean, good luck, right? Like, if you're just the kind of photographer that comes up to me in my DMs or in person and you're like, hey, it's so hard doing photography and this and that, and oh, it's so tough to get clients and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you believe that, like, your reality is going to show you that. You guys can search up the term reticular activation system. Your brain will like literally, kind of like a horse with blinders on, see reality in a certain way. If you tell yourself, clients love working with me, and this could be something, even if you only have 1 or 2 clients. Clients love working with me. Clients always are happy with the photos that I give to them, even if you don't know if they're happy, right? If they never said anything bad, okay, cool. Clients are always happy with the photos I give to them. If you had 1 client out of 10 who was upset with the photos you gave to them, cool. The majority of my clients are happy with the photos I give to them. Clients love working with me, da-da-da. Tell yourself these things. Now your blinders are gonna be like, oh, I'm this kind of person. The content that you're gonna post online is gonna be different. The way that you edit your photos is gonna be different. The way you're gonna talk to your clients on shoots is gonna be different. They're gonna wanna come back for more. They're going to treat you like that photographer who is making a bunch of money. So you really need to ingrain this belief in you that it's very easy to make money as a photographer, as a videographer, that it's really easy to do these projects where you're charging thousands of dollars. You have to believe this. And like, there's so many people who are doing it. I'm doing it. A lot of my friends are doing it. A lot of people that I know are doing it. There's literally thousands of photographers that are doing it. So it is a possibility. So believe it, because it's true and it's real and you can do it. So I remember one time I had a friend, I was walking around Toronto. This was like maybe 7 years ago. I was walking around Toronto and I was like, hey, I really want to do a photo shoot where I get paid, $1,000 or $2,000 to just take portraits of someone. And then he was telling me, he's like, yeah, in New York, like, people charge that all the time. Like, that's like normal prices to charge for portraits. Like, if you're doing headshots for, actors, or if you're doing business headshots, he's like, that's just normal. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why am I not thinking that that's normal? And then once I switched my mindset, oh, I can do that, then it came, right? And a couple of years later, I was able to charge $3,000. I remember the first time I charged $3,000 for a portrait session. The lady was going to be published in Vogue. She had like a personal brand, and she's like, hey, I want to have a makeup artist there, and blah, blah, blah. And then we set it up, and that simple. I remember the first time I did it, and I was like, oh, this is easy. And this is going to lead into my next point, which is sales. Some of you guys are scared to charge thousands of dollars. I don't know why. I don't know why some of you guys are scared to charge thousands of dollars. Like, however you would have charged a $50 photo shoot, hopefully you're not scared to charge $50 on a photo shoot. But like, whatever process you use for a small amount of money is the same process for the larger amount of money. I do have a very specific process on sales. I try not to like give it all away on my YouTube channel. I might start doing it. Or I could even like tell you guys briefly what it is, because it's nothing too crazy, but just like the people in my course, like, I break it down step by step. I show like multiple examples of like real clients that I message them, I email them, I call them, etc. And I show you exactly how I do my sales calls and conversations. So I actually book the client, but I'll give you guys, the kind of rundown, the bare bones version, or the step-by-step version without showing you the examples. Basically what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna qualify the client. So when you qualify a client, basically what you're doing is you're asking them questions to figure out what they want. And when you do this, they're gonna, like, let's say for example, you came to me, you want a photo shoot. I'm gonna be like, hey, what kind of photos are you looking for? Or you wanna do a photo shoot, do you wanna do it indoors or outdoors? Or you wanna do it outdoors, how many outfits are you thinking about bringing? Oh, you're thinking about bringing 3 outfits? Okay, perfect. As I'm asking these questions, you're getting qualified as a buyer. And so now you're deeper into the sales process, but you're also gonna be more comfortable with the price I'm gonna tell you, because I've asked you questions to make sure that you're the kind of person that is going to get this. Like, I have to think, what do you want, so I could charge you a price, right? If I just say, if somebody comes to me and they DM me and they're like, hey, how much do you charge for a photo shoot? And I'm like $500. Like, what am I even shooting? I don't even know, right? So I need to ask these questions. That's something that you guys need to figure out, is like, once you figure out what your service is and what you do, and you do this with the practice I told you in the beginning of this video, once you figure out what the services are that you want to offer, or that you're already good at, if you're already doing, let's say, portrait photography, or you're already doing like commercial videos or whatever, or just like cinematic videos. Once you know what you're going to be offering as a service and you have that service nailed down, now you could qualify the person on the things that you need to know to get to that point of what you're going to charge, right? So let's say, for example, I know one outfit photo shoot takes me an hour. a 3-outfit photo shoot takes me 2 hours. Okay, so I'm gonna ask clients the questions: how many outfits do you wanna wear on the photo shoot? How many locations do you wanna go to? And then I'm gonna be like thinking in my head, okay, this is gonna take about 2 hours to edit all these photos. It's gonna take maybe another 2 hours, It's gonna cost $700. That's just like a basic example of my mindset going through the process to figure that out. Now, on a high level, when you're charging like $1,000, $3,000, et cetera, generally there's going to be more expenses. You're going to have to pay a makeup artist. You're going to have to pay a hairstylist, et cetera. There's going to be time involved, and you're going to want to start at a more advanced level. You're going to want to start looking at all of your expenses and your margins. So if you want to have a specific margin on all of the services that you're offering, you're going to have to figure out what that is. When you're doing it solo, your margins are going to be, your net margins are going to be roughly like 100%, or sorry, your gross margins are going to be roughly like 100%. There might be a little bit of gas and then your camera equipment over the course of like the hundreds of shoots that you're going to be doing. That's like your main expense, right? When it gets to the point where you're like me and you have employees, you have, the makeup artist who's coming, you have the model that you had to pay for to come to the photo shoot. You had to rent some equipment for the photo shoot. You had to rent a studio that you're going to be at. That's where you're going to really have to look at what is everything that I'm going to be paying and how much do I want to make from this. And then you're also blending that with what is my client capable of paying. If my client's only capable of paying $3,000 and I want to charge them $3,000, but I also have $2,000 expenses, my margin is going to be 33%. I have to figure those things out. And the best way to do that is generally by having an Excel sheet. And that's something that I'm going to be releasing. I don't know if I'm going to release it on my YouTube channel or my course. My course is, by the way, it's not very costly. So if that's something that you do want, most of that stuff is going to be in there. But I'm thinking about releasing this Excel sheet. But basically, you could very easily do this. You can even go on like Fiverr and have somebody build it out for you for like $30 or whatever. But basically, you're going to create an Excel sheet that's going to go over all of your expenses. So studio, makeup artist, gas, travel time, editing time, shooting time, blah, blah, blah. Whatever your hourly rate is for shooting time, whatever your hourly rate is for editing time, or if you have an editor, you could have that as well. Employees, makeup artists, hairstylists, blah, 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 all these different things, models. Figure out all those expenses, and then you're going to have, let's say, for example, the net margin that you want at the end. You could either do that as a percentage. So you could say, here are all my expenses. How much margin do I want on top of that if it's 33%? Or you could say the client's budget is $3,000. I want a 33% margin. What is that out of the 3,000? And then the remaining is going to be your budget. So there's different ways of going about that, but that's going to be how you're going to figure out, what you're going to actually price your stuff. Create an Excel sheet, figure out, what kind of margins do you want, figure out what the client's budget is. That's something that you could be discussing in the sales process. But I would say for the most part, that's going to be how you're going to figure out your pricing. And I'm going to have another specific video on this because I'm going to have to be like at my computer and showing you guys the Excel sheet. So I'll upload another video onto my YouTube channel explaining exactly how I do that. So the next part I want to go over is, some clients aren't actually worth working with. And when you're just starting out, it's hard to kind of imagine that, right? And I'll just touch on this briefly because there's other things I want to discuss. But like some clients you don't need to work with. So when you're qualifying, you're asking questions and you're going through that sales process, you have to figure out, is this somebody that I want to work with? So one of the strategies that I generally say is you want to know, what does this person want? Is it, something that I want to do? Or is it something that I can help this client with? If you can't help them, then you can't accept the client. If you can help them, you have to figure it out. Is this somebody that I want to work with, or is it a project that I want to work on? Sometimes you're not going to do it, right? Like I had somebody reach out to me. They're like, hey, we want your company to do an event video for us, but we also need like an AV team who like mics up all the people on stage and puts the video on the screen. And I'm like, well, we don't do that, right? So like I have to be the one to qualify and say that we're not the people who do that. And it's very important to distinguish that and qualify your clients for that, because they're not going to know and you're going to have to be the one to decide. You don't want to work on a project that you don't want to work on, obviously. So I'm briefly going to touch on discounts, which I feel like I shouldn't have to, but for some reason, some of you guys offer discounts. Just don't offer discounts. There's no reason to ever discount something. If anybody ever asks you to lower your price on something, don't lower it with the same deliverables. It's just generally not a good idea. So what you're going to want to do is, let's say, for example, I reach out to a client, or a client reaches out to me and I'm responding with a price, a quote. I'm going to say the price is $3,000 for sake of example, and they might come back and say, hey, our budget is actually only $2,500. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak the deliverables. I have another video on this on like invoicing and stuff like that, but this video is just on pricing. So I'm going to have the deliverables. Generally, it's going to be like 4 shoot hours. You're going to get, let's say, 200 edited photos. you're going to get it in 10 business days, and it's going to be delivered in JPEG. Those are going to be like the itemized deliverables on the invoice. If they ask me that they want it at $2,500, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to look at it and say, okay, what from the deliverables is going to go down? Is it the photos? Is it the delivery time that's going to go up? Something has to change, right? Is it the amount of hours I'm on the shoot for, the amount of edited photos I'm giving? You have to figure out what it's going to be, because you have to think about it this way, right? Imagine you go to buy, I'm trying to think of it like an example. Imagine you want to go buy like a piece of art, right? A really nice piece of art. You're a multi-millionaire. You're like, I want to buy a super, super nice painting to go on my wall. And the artist has it up for $100,000. You go to the gallery and, you know, it's $100,000. So you go up to the guy and you're like, hey, can I actually get this painting for $3,000? And he goes, yeah, sure, have it. You'd be like, something obviously I'd be happy to have it, but like now I don't value the artist anymore, right? So if you go up to him though, and he's like, hey, I don't have that size for $3,000, but I do have this smaller print I can give you for $3,000. Or I have, you know, this isn't the original painting, but I could give you a recreation of the painting, like a print version of the painting, and that one would be $3,000 for sake of example, right? That makes sense, and I still value the artist, right? Because they're not being devalued by discounting. So don't discount if you don't have to discount. There's no reason to discount, in my opinion. I mean, we're not in the product space where it's like, oh, it's Christmas time, give me a discount. Another thing you could do, you know, to touch on the point of like there's seasons of photography, you can change your prices at different times of year. Like, but that's not something your client needs to know, right? If they come to you and you give them that first price, I'm saying don't bring your price lower without changing the deliverables. But if they come to you in, let's say, December versus July might be very busy for you, December maybe not so busy. So in December, that's when you could lower your prices, but you're not having a client come to you and you're saying it's $3,000 and you're not booked and then lowering your price. They're coming to you in December and you're not booked and you're saying, oh, it's $1,000 now because, you know, you have that time on your hands. For sake of example, that's like how I'd go about that. Another thing people want to know is like, do you charge based on the project? Do you charge hourly? So I personally charge based on the project to my client. I think that that's how most people should do it. It's like building a house, right? It's like, you're not going to go to a construction worker and say, what's your hourly rate for building a house? Like, what do you mean? Like, what house are we building? What materials there's much more than like an hourly rate. I'm shooting, I'm editing, there might be certain equipment that I need, etc., right? So like that can't be calculated with an hourly rate. But that being said, going back to my pricing calculator type thing that I have on Excel, you're gonna wanna figure out what all of your expenses are and what all your operating, like your hourly operating services are. You're gonna wanna figure those things out, and then what your price is for those hourly operating services as well. Once you figure those things out, like how much am I charging for my shoot hours, how much am I charging for my editing hours, etc. Once you figure that out, it's going to be easier to charge for the project, because you could calculate, here's my hourly rate for shooting, for editing, here's the cost for the model, the makeup artist, and the studio that we're going to be shooting at. All of that equals the project price that you send to the client. So that's how you're going to figure out the project price for the client, right? You shouldn't say like, hey, my hourly rate is $150, because what if they tell you later, hey, I want you to edit like 100 extra photos? Are you just going to do that and waste your time? Like, you should never be the perfect way. Like, and when I learned this, it was next level, because the amount of time I wasted with clients doing stuff that didn't need to be done and not getting paid for it was astronomical. Like, I was just wasting time all the time. So one of the things that you want to do is you're going to want to figure out, if you were paying somebody else, when would they charge you, right? So if I hire someone on Upwork, or if I have a part-time employee at my company and they need to spend extra time editing, that's going to be something the client pays for. But the issue is that a lot of, like, what I've noticed with my own self and with other photographers, videographers, creatives, is that what they'll do is they'll say, hey, you know, you're asking for more, it's going to cost more. And then the client might be upset because it's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to cost more for you to finish the edits that I wanted you to do, right? So what I say is, in the deliverables, I'll say, you get 4 shoot hours, 200 edited photos, but you only get, let's say, for example, 1 revision per photo. Or if it's 4 shoot hours, 1 edited video, you're only going to get 1 revision for that video. So now they know, and they paid the invoice, they signed the contract, so they know that that's what they're going to get, right? Once they've gotten that 1 revision, if they want another revision, they're going to have to pay for it. And that comes into the theory that I have of, like, if you were to have somebody else edit the content, and you don't have to do this, I'm just saying, if somebody else were editing the content, you would have to pay them for additional hours of editing. So don't do work for free that you would have to pay somebody else to do, because you're that person. So if I'm, for example, doing a video, I already did one revision, they come back for another revision, I'm not just gonna do that revision for free because I told them you only get one revision. So now you're gonna have to pay for the other one. Make sure that you're doing that because you're gonna start wasting time, and you never want to build resentment to a client for something that you could have fixed on your own. You never want to build resentment for something that is technically your fault. And, not charging for revisions is your fault. So never have resentment of like, oh, this client's making me do so many revisions. That's a mindset thing because they never knew that they had to pay for revisions, right? That's your fault. You should have told them that in advance, right? And then, obviously it's not 100% your fault, but like you just have to understand that as a business, you're supposed to tell them that it's going to cost more for those kind of things. So that's just something to note there as well. All right, and I think this might be the last thing that I touch on, but how to talk about pricing confidently, right? A lot of you guys are scared to say that you're gonna be charging a high price in the thousands of dollars, or even, some of you guys just starting out, $500 might be a high price point for you to tell somebody, right? So how do you get confident telling people that your service is gonna cost quite a bit of money? It really just comes down to reference experiences. If you've done it a bunch of times, you're gonna be confident doing it, but the first time that you do it, just do it by following a very simple process that I use, which is basically qualification. You ask them questions to figure out what they want. Once you figure out what they want, you tell them a price based on what they want. So, you're confident because you ask them questions, you know what they want, and now you're giving them a price based on that. Now, a lot of you guys, the thing that you're anxious about, that you're worried about is what are they gonna say when I say that price, right? $3,000, what if it's out of their budget? A very, very easy fix. Just tell them, hey, here's the price. If you need us to accommodate or if you have a different budget, let us know. Easy peasy. They're going to tell you if they have a different budget, right? When there's different types of people, but like generally when I'm hiring a videographer, if they tell me their price is $1,000 and my budget's, let's say $700, I'm just going to tell them like, hey, look, $1,000 is a bit out of budget. Can you do it for $700? Some people won't do that as a client. They're just going to see your message. Oh, it's $1,000. That's out of budget. I'm not going to message him. I don't want to bug him, right? But if that videographer came to me and they said, hey, my price is gonna be $1,000 for this, but let me know what your budget is and I'll see if I can accommodate. And my budget's $700, now I'm gonna go to him and I'm comfortable and I'll say, hey, my budget's $700, what can we do for that? And then going back to my other point, they can reduce their deliverables so that we can still get that project done, but we just figure out what do we need to move around. Is it the delivery time that's gonna take a bit longer? Is it the amount of edits that I'm gonna get, the amount of revisions? Maybe I'm not gonna get any revisions. Maybe it's the amount of shoot hours that they're gonna have on the shoot. So there's going to be different things there. And then when it comes to, let's say, writing an email or even speaking with a client on the phone, sometimes you just have to do it. Sometimes you just have to do it. If you're worried about sending that first invoice in the $1,000 range or the high price point, $500 might be a high price point for you. But like the first time you send that, $3,000 project, $10,000 project, write out the email, use the techniques that I use, whether it's in my course or like the stuff that I use that I tell you guys on my YouTube channel. I'm going to give out all this information for free, but my course just has it like step by step what to do. Plus it has examples of like real clients. But basically all you're going to want to do is you're going to want to write out that email saying like, here's what the price is, here's what you're getting, does this work for you? And then, you're going to want to say like, if you need us to accommodate, we can accommodate, etc. Once you've done that, you just send the email. And then you X out of your Gmail or you X out of your your email software as fast as possible and just start doing something else. Go on YouTube, go on Instagram and make a story. Do something after you've sent it to just get your mind off it, because you don't want to. I've seen a lot of people do this where like they'll send out a price, and actually my cleaner does this. Funny, it's actually kind of funny. So like my cleaner will be like, hey Kyle, the price is gonna be $120 because it was 3 hours, and I'll just be out doing stuff, and then I don't answer because I'm out doing stuff, and like an hour later she'll be like, well, I can do it for 100. Like, do not do anything like that. That's like, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that, like saying like, hey, my price is this, and then, oh, they didn't get back to me. Actually, I can do it for this price if you want to do it for this price. Like, I just send out the price and wait for them to come back to me. And that's something that comes with time too, because like, I have a bunch of clients coming to me, so I'm not worried about that one person who emailed me who doesn't follow up, because we have hundreds of emails coming in every month. So, yeah, just get used to like sending it out and not worrying about it too much. I think that's most of what I want to cover today for pricing. I know I tried to make it a masterclass, and I'm really giving out all the information that I've learned doing this for like 7 years, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year doing photography and videography, having multiple employees, doing it in multiple countries, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to give you guys all the information. So if you have any questions, leave them down below, because I'm going to be making more YouTube videos, and I'm going to touch on the topics that you guys leave down below in the comments. So do that, and then we'll talk soon.